Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Daniel. I watched until the thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days sat. His garment was as white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. His throne was flames of fire, its wheels had been set on fire. A river of fire rushed forth from his presence. Thousands upon thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 times 100,000 stood before him. The trial began, and the books were opened. I watched in the vision of the night, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man arrived, and he approached all the way to the Ancient of Days, and they presented him before him. And he gave him power and honor and the kingdom, and all peoples, tribes, and languages will serve him. His power is an eternal power which will not be taken away, and his kingdom one which will not be corrupted.
Let the earth rejoice, let the many islands be glad. Clouds and darkness are round about him. Justice and judgment are the foundation of his throne. King, the Most High over all the earth.
A reading from the second letter of St. Peter. For it was not by following fanciful doctrines that we made known to you the power and presence of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were made eyewitnesses of his greatness. For he received honor and glory from God the Father, whose voice descended to him from the magnificent glory. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And we heard this voice, brought from heaven, when we were with him on the holy mountain. And so we have an even firmer prophetic word, to which you would do well to listen, as to a light shining in a dark place, until the day dawns, and the morning star rises in your hearts. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus took Peter and James and John and he ascended onto a mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his countenance was altered, and his vestment became white and radiant. And behold, two men were talking with him, and these were Moses and Elijah, appearing in glory, and they were speaking of his departure, which he would accomplish at Jerusalem. Yet truly, Peter and those who were with him were weighed down with sleep. And becoming awake, they saw his majesty and the two men who were standing with him. And it happened that, as these were departing from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. And so let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you and one for Moses and one for Elijah." For he did not know what he was saying. While he was speaking these things, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered into the cloud. And a voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." And after the voice had sounded, Jesus was found to be alone, and they kept silent and told no one in those days any of these things which they had seen. Join us for today's reflection. There's always that moment when you realize someone you thought you knew is actually far more than you ever imagined. The quiet coworker who turns out to be a published novelist, the humble neighbor who was once a decorated war hero, the simple teacher who revolutionized an entire field of study. For Peter, James, and John, that moment came on a mountaintop when Jesus was transfigured before their eyes. They had been following Jesus for months, watching him heal the sick, teach the crowds, challenge the religious authorities. They knew he was special, maybe even the Messiah, but nothing had prepared them for this. Jesus took them up a high mountain to pray, and while he was praying, his appearance changed. His face became bright as the sun, his clothes white as light. Then Moses and Elijah appeared, talking with Jesus about his coming departure in Jerusalem. The 3 disciples were terrified and amazed. Peter, always the one to say something, blurted out his suggestion about making 3 tents. Luke tells us Peter didn't know what he was saying. When you're witnessing the impossible, words become inadequate. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud came a voice saying Jesus was God's chosen Son and commanding them to listen to him. When the voice finished speaking and the cloud lifted, Moses and Elijah were gone. Jesus was alone with them, looking ordinary again, and the disciples kept silent about what they had seen. The Transfiguration wasn't just a preview of Jesus' resurrection glory. It wasn't just a confirmation of his divine identity. It was a strategic revelation at exactly the right moment in their journey. Just before this mountaintop experience, Jesus had asked his disciples who people said he was, and then who they said he was. Peter had declared him to be the Christ of God. But immediately after Peter's confession, Jesus began teaching them that he must suffer, be rejected, be killed, and rise again. The disciples couldn't understand how the Messiah could suffer and die. It didn't fit their expectations of what God's chosen one should be like. So Jesus took the inner circle up the mountain and showed them his true identity, not to satisfy their curiosity, but to strengthen their faith for what was coming. In a few months, they would watch this same Jesus be arrested, beaten, and crucified. They would see him looking anything but glorious. When that happened, they would need to remember this mountain. They would need to hold on to what they had witnessed when everything seemed to contradict it. Peter understood this years later when he wrote about being an eyewitness of Jesus' majesty. The Transfiguration wasn't mythology or wishful thinking. It was eyewitness testimony to who Jesus really is beneath his ordinary human appearance. But here's what makes this feast day so relevant to us today. We all need transfiguration moments. We all need times when the veil is pulled back and we see reality more clearly than usual. Not because God changes, but because our perception needs adjustment. Not because Jesus becomes more divine, but because we finally see the divinity that was always there. The disciples had been looking at Jesus through purely human categories: a teacher, a healer, a prophet, maybe even the Messiah, but still fundamentally human in their minds. The Transfiguration shattered those categories. This wasn't just a man blessed by God. This was God in human form, temporarily revealing his true nature. Most of the time, we see Jesus through the lens of our expectations, our limitations, our understanding of what's possible. We reduce him to manageable categories that fit our experience, but every so often, if we're paying attention, we get a transfiguration moment, a prayer that's answered in an impossible way, a healing that defies medical explanation, a provision that comes from nowhere, a peace that surpasses understanding. These moments aren't accidents, they're revelations, God pulling back the curtain just enough to remind us who we're really dealing with. The voice from the cloud gave the disciples one simple command that still applies to us today. Listen to him, not just hear his words, but really listen with the understanding that this is the Son of God speaking. How differently would you approach Jesus' teachings if you truly believed they came from the mouth of the transfigured Christ? How differently would you pray if you remembered you're talking to the one whose face shines like the sun? The disciples came down from the mountain changed. They had seen Jesus as he really is, not just as he appeared to be, and that vision sustained them through the darkest days of his passion and death. Your next mountaintop experience might be closer than you think. It might come through a moment of prayer, a sudden insight, an unexpected provision, or simply a fresh revelation of who Jesus really is. When it comes, don't try to build tents to preserve it. Don't try to hold on to the feeling or recreate the moment. Just listen to him, and let what you've seen transform how you see everything else.